Ladies and gents, Home Studio X, and this is: could Trump actually invade Venezuela? Yeah. He sent warships and submarines and shit at Venezuela. Like, okay, what is happening? Trump is seeking peace prize, and at the same time, he's being antagonist. Does he want the peace prize? What is happening? Not like he's gonna get it or something. You don't get peace prizes like that. I don't know. He was talking about Greenland as well, and like military option is not off the table. Like, for years, people have been saying like, okay, politicians nowadays just change; they don't do anything. Trump took that to heart, for better or worse. I don't know what he's doing here with Venezuela, but okay. Does Venezuela have good military? Can they defend? I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm pretty sure this is related to something drug, right? Like drug cartel or something. At least that's what the official statement is from White House. I don't know. Let's do this one.
The US announced it would be sending 3 warships and some 4,500 troops to the Venezuelan coast. This sparked some anxiety inside Venezuela that Trump could be preparing for a full-scale invasion, something he's expressed an openness to in the past. And on Friday, Venezuela's acting president, Nicolas Maduro, asked ordinary Venezuelans to enlist in militias, before deploying thousands of Venezuelan troops to the Venezuela-Colombia border.
Yeah, I don't think if Trump ever invades Venezuela, I think that would be too much. I don't think that would go well with anyone, even his own base.
So in this video, we're going to take a look at Trump's long-standing interest in invading Venezuela, and whether it could actually happen this time. In the latest issue of our magazine, Too Long, we dive deep into the current state of America, discussing our real thoughts on the state of American democracy, soft power, universities, and the countries that could steal their crown, from China to the EU. Find out more about...
Yeah, on China's front. If US does invade Venezuela, that just gives China the green light to invade Taiwan. What is US going... US can't play morality card after that. So, yeah, I don't know.
Too Long, the end of the American order, by clicking the link in the description. So, probably the first thing to say is that Trump has actually threatened to invade Venezuela multiple times in the past. When Trump first took office in 2017, Venezuela was engulfed in crisis. The country was suffering with a long-running economic crisis, and in January 2017, Maduro's government abruptly pulled out of a dialogue with the Venezuelan opposition and began arresting opposition politicians. This sparked massive anti-government protests across the country, which escalated later in the year when Maduro announced his intention to rewrite the constitution, thus nullifying the upcoming presidential election and allowing him to stay in power indefinitely. And it was about this...
How many countries have this issue of political unrest? Too many countries I hear about, like, okay, they just jailed opposition. At that time, you don't have any democracy or anything close to democracy. If you can just openly arrest the opposition and everything's just fine, like people don't get pissed off. Like at that point, like, it's too many countries that don't have stability, apparently. Whenever I think about that, like, how many are there? Like, Pakistan already basically is military, is the government. Prime Minister doesn't have any power. Right? Venezuela, okay, just arrested the opposition. Same thing happened in a lot of other countries. So it really, sometimes this makes you think, like, you really take granted when you have stable democracy. But shit like this doesn't happen. Right? US is definitely taking that for granted nowadays with this kind of division between Republicans and Democrats.
This time that Trump apparently became interested in an invasion. According to CNN, on August the 10th, Trump floated a full-scale invasion during a closed-door meeting discussing America's Venezuela policy, only to be talked out of it by his then National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, on the grounds that it could backfire and was widely opposed by America's regional allies. Nonetheless, a day later, on August the 11th, Trump said he, quote, wasn't going to rule out a military option when it came to Venezuela, and White House spokespeople continued to insist that, quote, all options were on the table throughout his first term. Obviously, this didn't happen, and the Trump administration instead pursued a policy of so-called maximum pressure, offering a $15 million reward for any information leading to Maduro's arrest, imposing massive sanctions and refusing to recognize Maduro as the legitimate president.
Damn, all right. I didn't know all this shit was happening. They were this against the Korean regime, like all this shit, and like this actually wanted sign for Maduro from USA. Okay, 15 million for any information you can give me. We want to arrest this guy.
this didn't really work, insofar as Maduro didn't step down or make any meaningful concessions. And towards the end of his term, Trump ratcheted up the rhetoric, telling Fox News in May 2020 that, quote, "If we ever did anything with Venezuela, I wouldn't send a small little group. No. It would be called an army." During the presidential election campaign later that year, there were reports that Marco Rubio, who was a senator at the time but has since become Trump's Secretary of State, suggested an invasion during at least 2 meetings with senior White House officials. And John Bolton, who was Trump's national security advisor between 2018 and 2019, published a book wherein he claimed Trump said that invading would be, quote, "cool," because Venezuela is apparently...
I mean, this is no surprise that Trump thinks it's cool. It's like a checklist, right? Leader checklist for him. Like, okay, I was president for 2 terms. What did I do? Did I invade any country? Yeah, this is the problem, isn't it? This is the problem with Trump in certain way. He might think this is cool and not see like how many people would die, how many his own American soldiers would die. Doesn't matter how much overpowered US is, there will be soldiers who dies if he does that. And for what? Venezuela is not directly attacking USA or something. So what would be the defense here? Like, did you really need to do this? This would piss off a lot of people in like USA itself.
Apparently, in Trump's words, really part of the United States. At the time, Bolton's allegations felt somewhat far-fetched, but they feel more plausible in light of Trump's annexationist rhetoric towards Canada and Greenland early in his second term.
Really?
Once Trump had left office, reports emerged that, in 2019, he'd tried to coordinate an invasion with Argentina's then-president Mauricio Macri, with Argentinian special forces supporting a US-led multinational force. Colombia's president Gustavo Petro also claimed that Trump had talked to his predecessor Ivan Duque about invading Venezuela via Colombia, and in 2023 Trump said, quote, "When I left, Venezuela was about to collapse. We would have taken over it. We would have kept all that oil." For context, Venezuela has the world's largest...
Come on, man. This is as Putin can be. After that, like, you know how much damage this would do to US? Like, people already see US like that. But at least you have a card to play, like, oh, no, like, we are not like that. But if you just point blank do this, if your president is point blank saying this, you would have kept all that oil, we would have taken Venezuela. Like, if you become imperialistic like that now, like, nobody would ever listen to you about anything and will take lecture from you about anything. Any global reach you might have will diminish really fast. And countries like China, Russia will get more and more ideas.
Proven oil reserves, but oil production in the country has been hampered by chronic political and economic turmoil, which has in turn been exacerbated by massive US sanctions, plus the fact that Venezuelan crude is particularly heavy and thus more difficult to process. Unsurprisingly, most people expected Trump to take a hardline stance on Venezuela again in his second term, and originally it looked like things were heading in that direction. Tensions spiked in January when Maduro suggested that Venezuela, with the help of Brazil, should invade Puerto Rico, an unincorporated territory and self-governing commonwealth of the US, in order to, quote, liberate its people.
You lost your fucking mind? You attack Puerto Rico, US will flatten you. What are you, high? Right now, US is, maybe, should we do that? Maybe we should do that. How to do that? This just gives a green light completely. You can't fight USA. What are you, high? You're not even close to it. You're not even the spectrum of people who could fight USA. You do this shit, that would be too next level, man. Like, that's like poking a bear. Why would you do that?
A few days later, Axios reported that Trump's team was planning on pursuing a policy of regime change in Venezuela, in large part because they blame Maduro and his chronic mismanagement for the massive migration outflows Venezuela has experienced in recent years. For context, some 8 million people, roughly a quarter of Venezuela's population, have fled Maduro's regime in the past decade, with many of them going to the US. Somewhat.
So, okay, that's what his like reasoning is. Like all this ICE thing that he's doing right now, giving them $200 billion to deport people, bad hombres, as he says it. So in his theory that a lot of Venezuelan criminal gangs are in USA and that's why we should go after Venezuela. Is that what it is? Okay, how much truth that is? Like, is there some kind of conspiracy from Venezuela to send criminals? Like, I don't know. There needs to be more deeper investigation in that, not just feelings. This is what his base feels. Feelings are not facts.
Not surprisingly, though, there was then a period of relative calm, and in July it looked like relations might be on the up after the two countries completed a large-scale prisoner swap with the help of El Salvador, and the Trump administration gave Chevron, an American oil company, the green light to resume oil production inside Venezuela. However, in the past few weeks, tensions have skyrocketed. This all kicked off in early August, when the US increased the reward on Maduro to $50 million, having previously accused
Trump is the only guy who does that shit. Oh, Modi's my favorite guy. He's like my friend or something. Like terrific guy, awesome guy. By the way, 50% tariff. Like what the fuck? Oh, look at that Chevron. We've Venezuela. We are fine now. Chevron, go and do the oil thing. Dig. I think tensions are decreasing. Yeah. By the way, it's 50 million now. What the? All right. What about Chevron? What if Chevron gets caught into middle of this? What about safety of people from Chevron who are there? What if Venezuela says fuck you and I don't know, aren't they threatened? What if Maduro sees this as a act of aggression and I don't know, capture people who are American people who are there digging that oil?
Accused him of heading up the cartel of the Suns, a Venezuelan crime syndicate recently designated by the US as a terrorist group. In response, Maduro's foreign minister Ivan Hill dismissed the announcement as an attempt to distract from Trump's Epstein-related woes, and Maduro himself dared Trump to arrest him in a nationally televised speech. Then, last week, the US deployed 3 warships along with around 4,500 soldiers, including 2,200 Marines, to an area off the coast of Venezuela, nominally to...
this country is so close to American mainland that I don't think Maduro should basically, say to Trump, arrest me. Yeah, one secret operation here and there, they could literally grab you from your own mainland and bring to USA or something. I don't know. Yeah, it was SEAL Team 6 or whatever. That's a risky shit. America flexes its power overseas. You're not even overseas. You're in Americas. That's a risky thing.
Counter drug cartels. This apparently sparked some anxiety inside Venezuela that the US was preparing an invasion. And on Friday, Maduro called on ordinary Venezuelans to enlist in national militias to defend against the, quote, imperialists. On Monday, Reuters then reported that the US was deploying additional assets to the region, prompting Venezuela to deploy 15,000 troops to regions along the Colombia-Venezuela border and open talks with Colombia's defense ministry. So, could it actually happen? Could Trump actually invade Venezuela?
I don't see it.
Well, to be honest, no. Almost definitely not. For starters, while 4,500 troops might sound like a lot, it's nowhere near enough for an invasion. Venezuela is a large country, with a population of about...
And that's not how US roll, though. If US want to invade Venezuela, first US would bomb the shit out of Venezuela. There'll be a lot of B-2 bombers and B-1 Lancers and shit like that would be flying there. You'd hear of news how most of the Venezuelan anti-air defenses are done. Complete air superiority, and then everything happened. Yeah, they wouldn't invade like that.
30 million people, and in 2018, the Council on Foreign Relations assessed that an American military intervention in Venezuela would require at least 100,000 troops, and would most likely end in, quote, disaster. It's worth comparing this to previous US interventions in South America. The 1983 invasion of Grenada, for instance, which had a population of just 100,000 people, involved over 7,000 troops, while the 1989 invasion of Panama, which had a population of about 2 million people, involved some 30,000 troops, some of whom were already in position because the US already controlled the Canal Zone. Similarly, a limited strike looks unlikely because, well, it's not really clear what it could achieve. Ultimately, this looks more like saber-rattling than anything else.
That's the thing. What is the objective here again? You want to capture the Maduro? That's not going to happen unless you full-blown invaded. Why would you full-blown invade? What exactly is happening? You can't say cartel and drug money and ICE thing. You can't really... That's just weird at that point. This is one of those things. But this is it's not even a full year now. It's what's been 8 months he's in power, and this shit is happening. Who knows what's going to happen next 3 years?
And it's worth keeping in mind that both Maduro and Trump have an incentive to oversell what's happening to distract from their domestic troubles. Now, the US's deployment of warships has been covered thoroughly across the media landscape, with 183 sources reporting on it. Taking a closer look, you can see that 36 of these sources come from the right.
Yeah, but go to original video page link and from there support this channel. Yeah, I don't know, man. I heard the news. I'm like, what the fuck is even happening right now? But then again, that's the thing. A lot of things that are happening behind the curtain. A lot of politicking happening with many people that we don't know about. What is the end goal of this? Who the fuck knows? Why now? There's many things I don't know. This could be one of those things like, okay, I don't know, like Epstein files. Nobody's talking about Epstein files anymore. This could be one of those things. Putting tariffs on India, okay, doing this trade wars. By the way, I'm attacking Venezuela. Boo. Like, forget the Epstein files. Who the fuck knows? That maybe this is enough. Who knows what's the reason here? Yeah. But I don't see USA invading anything. And again, USA doesn't like, yeah, it would be catastrophic. I don't think it would be catastrophic. USA can invade Venezuela very easily. Like, if that, I mean, come on. USA is that powerful. But yeah, it would be a problem in mainland. People would be pissed off. Like, why would we do that? Why in the modern times, where it's the biggest economy in the world, $30 trillion economy, why would we do any of this shit? That's like, the more richer you are, the more you want to preserve that richness and don't want to do something that fuck that up. So if USA try to attack anything, their own people will be pissed off. Like, don't do that. Alright, well, if you like my content, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.